The movie opens to a hijacked transatlantic 473 plane preparing to land at the RAF base in Scotland. Soldiers rush out to take their position. Colonel Alan Drummond has been called in to deal with the situation, and as soon as he lands, an officer informs him that they are working under the assumption that the pilot and co-pilot are dead. As they enter the control tower, an officer is communicating with the plane, giving step-by-step instructions on how to land. The plane eventually lands safely. Drummond asks his men for a visual and contacts the plane, asking about the situation on board. He is informed there are explosives on board and to take appropriate safety measures when they notice movement from the rear hatch. A parachute is thrown out and the soldiers see a boy named Elias climbing down. He is then approached by 2 RAF trucks ordered by Drummond to get him out of there. An injured man appears in the cockpit. Drummond radios him and instructs him to climb into the pilot's seat and slowly raise his hands. They will open fire if he makes any sudden movements. The next scene, we see Drummond and his German translator, Naomi, at the medical center. She tries talking to the young boy to find out what happened on the flight whilst he is being examined by the doctor, but she gets no response. We go back the day before, at Berlin Airport, where Elias is alone approaching the check-in desk. A kind stranger helps him with his luggage. It cuts to Elias's mother Nadia, who is in her hotel room talking to Dr. Brown in New York, where she and Elias will be traveling for the treatment of her mysterious illness. Nadia arrives at the airport wearing sunglasses at night, and meets up with her son. Whilst waiting to board the flight, Nadia heads to the bathroom to inject herself with her medication and downs a drink of some sort. Elias befriends the kind stranger from earlier. He introduces himself as Farid. He is a physicist traveling to the US for a convention. The passengers start boarding the plane. Meanwhile, Julia, the stewardess, enters the cockpit and asks the pilot and co-pilot Bastian if they'd like some coffee. The plane finally takes off when one passenger named Carl is being a nuisance. A male steward who goes by the name 8 Ball is sent to calm him down and to avoid any possible panic. Air Marshal Michael grabs Carl and takes him into the kitchen area. A second Air Marshal named Holge joins them shortly after. 8 Ball swiftly closes the curtain and stabs Marshal Holge, while Carl grabs Marshal Michael in a chokehold position. 8 Ball asks about the third Air Marshal. Passenger Curtis, who is also one of the baddies, heads to the kitchen area where he is instructed to find the third Air Marshal and kill her. At the same time, 8 Ball repeatedly stabs Marshal Michael. He re-enters the cabin covered in blood, telling the other frightened passengers to remain seated whilst pointing a gun at them. His conspirators join him, and Berg makes his way to the cockpit, when Bastian opens it and tells him that he killed the pilot. They open the hatch and throw him down as the other passengers are ordered to make their way to the back of the plane. Berg, who seems to be the leader, makes an announcement to the passengers that they have taken over and orders them to put their hands on the seat in front of them. Yuri finds the black box and reprograms it, preventing the plane from being tracked, and Bastian turns the plane around. Elias gets scared for his mom even though she tells him not to worry, but he checks the plane schematics and tells her where she can hide from the sunlight. 8 Ball becomes increasingly aggressive and beats up a passenger. As Carl tries to calm him down, Elias gets up and runs towards the cargo door. Nadia goes after her son and gets shot by 8 Ball. Carl grabs the boy and puts him back in his seat, telling him to stay there. Berg warns 8 Ball about messing up again and confiscates his gun. He then gathers Farid and 2 other Muslim passengers together. He forces a man named Marvin to translate the Arabic writing. He fails and gets shot. It's Farid's turn to translate. In a flashback, we go back to the night Nadia lost her husband Nikolai. They get stuck in a snowstorm after their car breaks down in the middle of nowhere. Nadia is told to wait in the car with baby Elias while Nikolai goes to get help. After waiting for a while, she leaves the car and walks into the woods, following in her husband's footsteps. Nadia comes upon an abandoned house and thinks she'll find him there. Inside of the house, she sees blood on the floor and follows a line of it down toward the basement, when a creature comes out of nowhere and chases her down. Frightened, she locks herself in the basement where she finds her husband dead. The creature comes in through a window and bites Nadia's hand before it gets killed by the sunlight. Back to the present time, after gaining consciousness, Nadia sneaks into the cargo compartment after hearing dogs and hides, as Curtis and Yuri come down looking for tools to build a bomb. Yuri hears noises and goes to take a look. He finds that Nadia has been feasting on one of the dogs behind a car. She then attacks him and kills him. The creature that bit Nadia's hand was a vampire, turning her into one also. She makes her way back to the cabin concealing her eyes with sunglasses, and catches Curtis booby-trapping the plane. 8 Ball announces they have planted toxic nerve gas in the entire plane, and will be released, instantly killing everyone if they try to be smart. The hijackers head to the cargo area and find Yuri dead, Assuming the dog killed him, they carry on with their plan. Meanwhile, Nadia heads back into the cabin and hugs her son. She goes to the cockpit and discovers the hijackers have set the plane on autopilot. She goes back and takes passenger Muhammad, as he says he can fly the plane. Meanwhile, 8-Ball finds Nadia's medicine in the cargo area. Further inspection, he finds her blood stains on the trapdoor and realizes that she is still alive. The hijackers then return to the cabin looking for her. One of the passengers tells them that she's in the cockpit. The hijackers order her to come out. She locks the door and tells Muhammad to turn the plane to New York. Berg threatens to kill a passenger if she doesn't come out. He shoots the passenger and tells Nadia that they'll keep killing others until she opens the door. This makes her angry. She comes out and turns into a full-blown vampire, biting Berg straight into his neck, scaring the hell out of the other hijackers. Berg begins changing from the bite. Nadia sees this and goes back to kill him, with 8-Ball witnessing the whole thing. While Elias and Muhammad have locked themselves in the cockpit, Nadia goes into the restroom to inject herself with the medicine, then goes into another flashback. After making it out alive from the abandoned house where her husband was killed, Nadia started turning into a vampire and became thirsty for blood. One day, Nadia goes back to the abandoned house where she found drugs that suppress vampire tendencies in the basement. An elderly vampire appears and tries to shoot her to stop the further spread of vampirism, but he misses and she beats him to death. Nadia then escapes with vials of vampire suppressant before burning the old house to the ground. Back on the plane, 8-Ball goes through Nadia's diary and plans to burn her with UV light. Elias storms out of the cockpit to get his mom from the restroom who has collapsed, while Muhammad chickens out and locks himself in the cockpit again. Nadia rises and goes towards 8-Ball who's waiting for her with a stake and a UV light. He burns her face and she faints, so he tells the others to take back control of the plane. He finds a syringe and fills it with her blood, and when he's about to stake her, Elias shows up threatening him with a gun. 8-Ball goes toward Elias, and when he tries to grab the gun, he accidentally shoots the window which depressurizes the plane, making the passengers struggle to breathe. Nadia gets up and quickly gets Elias to an oxygen mask, takes the gun, and shoots 8-Ball who runs away. Simultaneously, Muhammad can't hold the door and passes out in the cockpit, allowing the hijackers to take over again. Nadia hands Elias over to Farid and goes after 8-Ball, who has locked himself inside a bulletproof car in the cargo area. The maniac injects himself with her blood and immediately begins to turn. To stop him, Nadia pours alcohol inside the car and sets him on fire. Meanwhile, Bastian restores the air pressure on the plane and puts it back on course. The hijackers see that there is a fire in the cargo area, though before they come down, Nadia has already contained the fire and goes back inside the plane. Curtis finds 8-Ball alive in the car. He bites Curtis before getting out. A bloodthirsty 8-Ball is now on the prowl. Farid and one other passenger helps Nadia keep 8-Ball locked out, but the vampire manages to bite Farid's hand. To stop the spread of the vampire's blood throughout Farid's body, Nadia amputates his hand. After securing the entry to the cargo hold, Nadia drags Bastian to the cockpit where he tells her they have to find the nearest airport to land because they are running low on fuel. One of the passengers is hurt and decides to release 8-Ball and get bitten by him to survive. Well, that didn't work, as 8-Ball just kills him and attacks the other passengers. Nadia and Farid see that the airplane has turned into complete pandemonium as the other passengers flock to the cockpit doors, trying to get in. Bastian doesn't allow them to open the door and Nadia realizes that they shouldn't land the plane because the vampires would get out. Farid thinks that they should land the plane and then blow it up remotely, so they go to the fuel tank to set up the explosive, but realize they don't have the remote. Nadia volunteers to blow the plane up along with herself after the plane lands, and explains to Elias that it must be done. Refusing to sacrifice his mother, he crawls down into the cargo hold protecting himself with a UV light. He manages to get to the cargo area and get hold of the remote, but he is soon cornered by 8-Ball and the other vampires. She asks Bastian if the airplane is on the right track, and he tells her that it's on its way to the air base on autopilot mode, and anyone can land the plane just by pulling the brakes. Nadia turns to Farid and makes him promise that he will take care of her son, then feeds on Bastian's blood making her more powerful. She then rushes to the cargo hold and immediately attacks 8-Ball. But he overpowers her and starts feasting on her, draining her blood. Hearing Elias scream, 8-Ball slowly walks towards him. When Elias gets the idea to blow out the hold door so his mother can push 8-Ball out of there. She collapses and Elias tries to wake her, while 8-Ball crawls back inside the plane and grabs the boy's leg. Fareed sees this and steers the plane sideways towards the sunlight, causing 8-Ball to burn and fall to his death. Elias feeds his mother his own blood and she wakes up, pushing him away and tries to control herself not to feed on him more. So she flees. The movie cuts to present day, and Elias pleads with the translator to save Fareed before being sedated. Drummond still believes Fareed is one of the bad guys and he orders his soldiers to enter the plane and capture him. Elias is taken to the ambulance but then jumps out while it's moving and runs towards the plane still clutching his teddy bear. He stops and sees his mother munch on a soldier before she looks at him and gives a hungry roar. He realizes that she's not really his mom anymore and proceeds to blow up the plane, killing her together with the other vampires. The soldiers escort Fareed away when he pleads to them to stop and hops his way to Elias. Drummond orders to uncuff him so he can hug the boy. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more cool videos.